Today I'm going to do a quick walkthrough with you of the steps involved in making a 3D print. So one of the issues a lot of people have is trying to find sort of beginning to end, how do I just make a print, and the steps in the order you do them in. So I'm going to start out by going to a website called Thingiverse. Okay, and Thingiverse is a great website. There's all sorts of 3D models for printing that you can download for free. So if you want to get started and you don't know how to make your own 3D models, and I'll admit I'm very much a novice at that myself, but there's lots of really good stuff here. So I'm going to search for something interesting to print. My friend Heather's son just loves dinosaurs, and who can blame him? So I'm going to search for dinosaurs. And we'll see what we get. Okay, well, there we go. We've got a T-Rex skeleton. That looks pretty cool. So if I click on that, you can see the model, or the complete print there, and they show you different views, and sometimes they show you the rendered 3D model, and so on. And if you scroll down, there's information about the print and what you need to print it and so on. This has 79 pieces, so it's going to be something of a puzzle to put together. So you can look at this page if you want, but right now I'm just going to download all the files. So I click the download. Okay, it's going to wait a few seconds to show us a commercial. Okay, and then it's going to download. Okay, so I'm going to go to my downloads folder. And it's still downloading. Okay, so now it's downloaded, it's unzipped, so we have a folder, T-Rex skeleton. And in there's going to be a README, which is going to basically usually point you to the Thingiverse page. Sometimes it'll have the same information that page does. The license for how you're allowed to use it, whether you can sell it or not, and so on. The images that you saw on the website, okay, so those will be included, and the files that you need to print. And these are all .stl files, okay. There's also instructions. There's an instruction PDF here. But STL files are 3D model files. It's a very common file format for 3D printed models. And you can see that they can, you'll get a preview of them in the Mac. Okay, so there's the skull. So I'm gonna start with the skull because that looks like a cool thing to print, and there are a lot of files here to print. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to turn that model into something that the printer understands. Okay, and the term 3D printers use for this is called slicing. Okay, and basically what it does is it takes this 3D model and turns it into the instructions for printing each layer of the model on your printer. And so it slices it up into layers and makes the instructions for that. And there's lots of software for doing this. The software that came with my printer is called Cura. So I'm going to open this up in Cura. Okay, and there you'll see the skull as it's going to, in the orientation that it's going to print on the printer bed. Okay, if I hold down the control key and drag my mouse around, you can get all the different angles and views of it and look at it. Okay, now my printer, and most printers do, came with settings to put into Cura, and you just load them in, and the instructions were in the manual. And so Cura now knows about my Anycubic Vyper and all the right settings for printing this file. So once you do that and you set up your printer, and I did that in my printer setup video, it knows how to print it. Now there's a couple of things you might want to tweak. The first is this up here, and that's called the Infill. Okay, so Infill. Okay, the infill density is how much plastic to extrude on the inside of the thing you're printing, how solid to make it. And most things that you print don't need to be very solid. So you can save a lot of filament and a lot of printing time by using a fairly low infill. Okay, so I'm at 15% here, and that's probably going to be fine for this. So I'm going to just leave it at that. And then the other thing that you might want to adjust, and I do this, if you look at build plate adhesion, okay, there is something called a skirt. So you can print a skirt. And what a skirt does is it goes, before it prints your model, it lays down a little line of plastic around where the model is going to print, okay, and it goes around, in this case, 3 times, and lays that down, and it doesn't touch the model, but I like it because it makes sure that the extruder is squirting out the plastic and laying it down on the bed before it starts printing the model. So it doesn't waste very much plastic filament at all, but I find that it works really nicely for making sure that that everything's going to go right after that. So once you've got those 2 settings made, you click this big slice button here, and that's the part where it converts it from the STL model into a set of instructions called GCode, okay, for printing each layer of the model. Okay, so now it's been sliced, and Cura estimates it's going to take 1 hour and 46 minutes to print this. Okay, 3D printers are not terribly speedy. Okay, they do take a while, so it's going to take 1 hour and 46 minutes. It's going to use 21 grams of filament. Okay, now if you click the preview button here, okay, it's going to show you a preview in this space of what the model is going to look like, and this slider here will let you go down and look at each layer. Okay, so I'm going to spin this around a little bit, and you can see the infill there. You can see that the skull is going to be hollow, okay, for the most part, because we set a 15% infill. Okay, and then this slider down here will show you how the filament will be laid down on that layer. Okay, now for the most part you don't have to worry about that. Okay, but it's interesting to look at ahead of time and get a sense of what you're going to print. When you start getting more into designing your own models and printing them out, and testing them and getting them ready, then this can be very helpful. But for us, this has already been done by the person who made the model. So I'm just going to click the Save to Disk. Okay, and I'm gonna just call this T-Rex skull.gcode, and I'm going to save it right there. Okay, and now we're done with Cura. Okay, so I'm going to quit Cura. Okay, and there's the G-code that we just made, and now we need to put that on this SD card. Okay, because that's how you move the G-code from the computer to the 3D printer. So I have a little adapter here. I put the card in there. This adapter has both a USB and USB-C connector, so that's the one that goes into my computer. Okay, and so now it's loaded, so I'm going to get another window here. I'm going to go to my Vyper SD card, and I'm going to drag that G-code over to the SD card. Okay, and you can see the G-code that I printed last night is still on the card. I have a little folder I call Done. I just stick that in the Done folder. Now I will eject this SD card. And we will go over to the printer and print it. Okay, we're over at the 3D printer, and I'm going to turn it on, and it's going to get noisy. I have a microphone on, so hopefully it won't be too bad and you'll be able to hear me. But I'm going to reach behind here and turn it on. And we can see it booting up. Okay. Okay, it's not noisy yet, but as soon as we start working with it, it will be. Now, the first thing I like to do if I've been making prints is just give a quick clean off of the print bed. Okay, so I have some 95% isopropyl alcohol, and you can probably use 75%. The stuff that you get at the drugstore, but I had this, and so I just give it a spritz and wipe it off with a lint-free cloth. And that basically just gets rid of any oils that might have gotten on there from my fingers. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is take the SD card and stick it in the SD card slot. In mine, it goes upside down, and just push that in. Okay, and then over here on the control panel, and let me see if I can get you a better view of the control panel. Okay, so over here on the control panel, we want to print, so I'm going to press the print. And there's the T-Rex skull G-code that I put on the SD card. So I'm going to touch that and then touch print. Okay. Now at this point, okay, now it's getting noisy, and at this point, it's got to come up to temperature. Okay. So the bed temperature needs to be 60 degrees Celsius, okay, and the nozzle temperature is set by Cura. I don't remember what it's set at the moment, but that needs to come up to temperature as well. So at this point you wait, okay, until it comes up to temperature, and then it will begin printing. Okay, so I'm going to move back over here. Right down there is the tip of the extruder where the plastic will come out. Okay, so that's heating up, and it will often drip a little bit as it heats up before it gets ready to go. So If there's a lot of drippage, I'll just quickly sort of pick it off with my forceps here, and then you'll see it print the skirt that we talked about, and then print the skull. Okay, the nozzle temperature is at 85 degrees Celsius, going up to 200 as the target temperature. Okay, we're at temperature, so what the machine is doing now is zeroing out, so it's finding the zero coordinates, 0, 0, 0, and X, Y, and Z, and setting itself there before it begins printing. Okay, now it's going to start laying out our skirt. And you can see that just make sure that everything's going down. And so now it's starting to print the skull. So since this, what did I say, an hour and 46 minutes estimated time, since it's going to take that long, I'm going to pause this video and set up a time lapse so that we can collapse that down and you can watch the printing happen. And here we have our print, a nice Tyrannosaurus skull. Now, I have a confession to make. The very first print that I started with you guys failed, okay? It did this, okay? And what happens when you get this, the print got so far and then fell off the print bed, okay? And so once it falls off the print bed, it's loose and the filament won't stick. There's a good reason for this, okay? If you look, I'm going to just color the bottom of this here. Okay. For this entire skull, the only part that was touching the build plate is this surface here, and that just wasn't enough to hold it down when it got taller. So what I did was I went into Cura and I made two changes. Okay, I increased the bed temperature by 10 degrees, so that made it stickier. Okay, the plastic sticks better, and then I added what's called a brim. Okay, so instead of the skirt that just draws a line around the model that doesn't touch it, like we started with, a brim is this added on piece here that extends the base of the model so that it has more surface area to adhere to the bed. And I can just take an X-Acto knife and trim that right off because it's very thin. Okay, so it's easy to remove, but if you don't need it, it's extra work. So that's how I solved the problem and how we got our nice Tyrannosaurus skull.